Man, what a job Mike Dunleavy has done as GM of the Golden State Warriors. We give our collective apologies. We have Evan Giddings on the show. He was at the Mavericks game on Sunday. A lot to break down on today's rendition of Locked On Dubs.
Who cares now? Because I'm here, and I would like to think that I am wanted here.
Most importantly, he a dog.
He got 4 championships.
You are Locked On Warriors.
I know Jimmy drinks great wine.
Your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Speculation is just what it is, though.
Your team every day.
What is the good word, everyone? We appreciate you for making Locked On Warriors a part of your busy schedule. Ways that you could check us out. Be sure to subscribe to the show, YouTube, audio podcast. We are always free and available for you. We have a newsletter. You can find it at lockedondaily.com. That'll shoot Warriors information your way around the clock, and it is free to subscribe. LockedOnDaily.com. Why bury the lead? This is Locked On Warriors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Charlie Walter. I'm a former host at 95.7 The Game in the Bay Area. That's the flagship of the Golden State Warriors. Also cover the team in their title run for CBS News Bay Area. Call letters KPIX. One of my coworkers while at 95.7 The Game, Evan Giddings. He's a talk show host and producer there. You can hear him on Warriors postgame. He is our guest of honor on today's show. You can also hear him on the St. Mary's Gales radio calls. That's where I want to start, Evan. I was just in Vegas, and the big ticket, the easy winner, St. Mary's money line over Gonzaga, plus 250. How do they get those odds that screwed up? It was wire to wire, man. Good to have you.
What's going on, Chuck? Well, I don't think they'd swept Gonzaga all but one time in the last 10 years. They don't often win at the Kennel. So I, like you, was on the St. Mary's Gales, but for bias reasons. I'm with you. I think they're a team to not be reckoned with come March, and they're getting themselves geared up. So I'm glad you were on the winning side, Chuck.
Yeah, it was honestly, quite frankly, the easiest ticket I ever put in, and was stunned that it was a 6.5 point spread, but on to another team that could make some damage, I guess later than March, we hope, April, May, even into June. That would be the Golden State Warriors. Itinerary of today's show for everyone watching and listening. We appreciate all the everydayers that are subscribed to the show. Hop in the comments, leave your thoughts for Evan and myself. But I want to give Mike Dunleavy not necessarily an apology, but just a pat on the back, man. He's done so well as GM for the Golden State Warriors. I want to get into Draymond Green's breakdown of why he said this team's going to win an NBA championship, the difference that a couple of weeks make, and quite frankly, the secret sauce that is Jimmy Butler. So let's start with Mike Dunleavy, man. What a job he has done, and I would like to apologize. I said one thing that I guess was disparaging of Mike in the offseason. I said, what he's done with this 12-man rotation and trying to go strength in numbers, it's either going to make him look like a genius or a jackass. And for a lot of this season, I guess you could say jackass because it did not work whatsoever. But what he did, weathering the storm, and not my foot massager turned on below me. I'm a little bougie. But what he did, weathering the storm, to not go after Paul George and Lauri Markkanen in the offseason, although the talks were there, and then to not pull the trigger on a Vucevic or get into the Zion Williamson sweepstakes, whatever it may be, he did everything perfectly. Now, I know that there's still a lot to be said on Jimmy Butler, mainly because of age and durability issues. But in terms of the fit, the Warriors waited for the perfect missing piece to this team. In addition, he's drafted Podziemski, who looks outstanding, Quentin Post in the second round, trading a pick to get Lindy Waters, and then getting back into the draft to get Quentin Post, who looks outstanding, extending Moses Moody before the season, before his stock was rising, which it is. All things considered, he's done an excellent job, man.
Isn't it crazy how one player changes everything? Isn't it crazy how winning sort of solves all your problems? I mean, the fact that Bradley Beal is a no trade clause away from preventing all of this from happening. I'm with you. It seems like the Warriors dodged a lot of bullets, and if the Clippers had been willing to deal Paul George, we wouldn't be talking about
bullet. Markkanen would have been a bullet just because of the asking price and the fact that it caps your flexibility.
Kevin Durant might have been a bullet with everything that they would have had to give up in the process. Draymond Green might have gone away. Jonathan Kuminga would be in Phoenix, and you'd be left with no first-round picks and no flexibility. No, Mike Dunleavy Jr. has done a fantastic job of adapting and figuring out how to maximize each hand that he's been dealt so far. And he was not dealt an easy one. He was given an albatross contract in Poole. He had to smooth over that situation, adjust to the new CBA, and, oh, by the way, try and give Steph Curry some help. I think he's done all three of those things. And this is a guy that had no experience as a general manager coming in. So I know that he is obviously a basketball lifer and had been a part of the Warriors, but what he's done in a short amount of time is nothing short of outstanding. And I don't think he's going to be an executive of the year, but he absolutely deserves to be in that kind of conversation with the way that he's adjusted to the type of season that they've had so far.
Oh yeah, they were in purgatory 3 weeks ago. It seemed like the season was just completely dead if they didn't do anything. And there were points there during the deadline nearing where it felt like they may not do anything. The name that was brought up was Vooch. And then, Zach LaVine's name was brought up, and LaVine would have been
a
team to help with scoring, but it wouldn't have been Jimmy Butler. Like, this piece has been everything that the Warriors needed. And so much of it is a byproduct of patience, not listening to the fans with the pitchforks that said, we need to make a move now in the offseason. He waited, he watched, he evaluated like he said he would. He checked them up. And then at the very last moment, or I guess 24 hours before he had to make a decision, he pounces and he lands Jimmy Butler. So now it was, let's go back a month ago. Steph Curry's given the news conferences where he's saying, he's not enjoying things right now. He's saying that the team is mid. He wasn't happy. He wasn't happy. He wasn't a believer. You could tell that everything's changed. Not only is he a believer in this team, he's trolling opponents, with a night in the third quarter that he hasn't pulled out since game 6 in the 2022 NBA Finals, a night that early. That is the addition of Jimmy Butler. Steve Kerr said, Jimmy gives you some swagger. And Draymond Green said, in regards to backing up his championship claims, I know what an NBA championship team looks like. This team all year had been kind of like, man, we're right there, but we just can't get over the hump. There's a reason you feel like you're right there, but you can't get quite over. And the reason is because we were missing a piece. That piece isn't missing anymore. That piece is him. I'm sure you hadn't watched a ton of Jimmy Butler before this because, quite frankly, he was always playing in a different time zone, and you catch his highlights here and there. You catch him in the playoffs and get playoff Jimmy. Is he a lot more than you expected in terms of what he's brought to this team and his fit?
No, he's actually been exactly what I've expected. I had a chance to watch Jimmy a lot when I lived in Minnesota in 2018 when he was on the Timberwolves, and he immediately turned around that franchise, which had missed the playoffs for 14 straight seasons. He goes to Miami. They make the finals his first year there. Granted, it's a bubble, but still, he dragged that team to multiple finals, multiple Eastern Conference finals. And I would argue that what the Warriors have done, Chuck, is they've now paired the two players that have done the most with the least of any NBA individuals in both conferences over the last, let's say, 5 years. Jimmy Butler has gotten the most out of Miami Heat's squad that, quite frankly, had no business being in the finals 2 years ago. And Steph Curry, a lot of people are still wondering how the hell he helped that team win a championship in 2022. So you have now put two of the best maximizers in the game together. And I think that's why you're seeing when Steph's off the floor, this team goes on runs. When Jimmy's off the floor, they obviously can still go on runs. Curry and Jimmy are a tandem that I don't think any of us foresaw just because we weren't sure how it was going to play out. But in a way, they're the yin to each other's yang, and they complement each other perfectly. And that's why the Warriors are, to your point, resuscitated or drawn away from the purgatory they were previously in.
Yeah, and another reason to think that the purgatory could extend, or the lack of being in purgatory could extend a little bit longer, is another yin and yang that I've compared. It would be Brandon Bajimski and Moses Moody. Their two roles, although completely different, when they're on at the same time like they've been, it has been a very welcomed addition to, forget the Warriors bench, to their starting lineup right now. I mean, they're in the starting five, and this is the best a Warriors top 5 has played this year. Jonathan Kuminga still needs to return. We'll give you the update on that in just a bit. We'll continue the show moving forward, talking about what Butler's brought to the table, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. The statistics you need to hear on how much he's changed this thing, that is coming up.
And most importantly, he a dog.
We need more dogs.
NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 24-25 NBA regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. Few ways you could take advantage of this deal. You could do a game day feast, pizza, wings, burgers, whatever it may be, all delivered to your door from your favorite spot. There's late night cravings. We all know about the munchies. There's lunch on the go. You're hungry. You don't have time to cook. That is when you get yourself a little Dash Pass or a fueling or watch party. If you got friends over, definitely check this one out. So sign up for Dash Pass. Get ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more.
Very, very, very happy that I'm not getting suspended no more.
All right, so some statistics that I want to bring up that really show how the Warriors have changed as a team since Jimmy Butler has been brought to the squad. First of all, let's start with the fact that Butler is the first Warrior in franchise history to have 120-plus points, 30-plus rebounds, and 30-plus assists through a player's first 6 games with a team. So that's point number one of this. Does a little bit of everything. Specifically, the being a willing passer and finding the open man is something that he does very well. Brings that to the table. So that's number one. Number two, he brings in immaculate vibes. The Warriors had a chance to reset, to bring in a completely new look. It's allowed, it brought the mid-level players to other stops and instead brought in, I guess, new roles for the Warriors' young players like Podziemski, like Moody, and has allowed them to kind of keep some of that depth, but transition the power to different players than, their roles allowed them to have before. Vibes are immaculate. The bench, when Steph Curry is not in the game, the difference has been staggering. We'll get into those numbers in just a moment. Curry rested for the entire fourth quarter on Sunday. That is huge. The Warriors, a plus 30 over the last 6 games when Curry sits. Before Butler, the Warriors were a minus 90 over the first 51 games when Curry sat. But the biggest thing to me that Jimmy Butler brings to the table is a more balanced defense. Green and Butler, some of the best defenders in the game, still getting up there in age, but they could still defend with anyone around them. The pieces of the Warriors puzzle now seems to fit in well, with Podziemski and Moody being 30-minute-a-guy players. Since that trade, they have the league's 6th best defensive rating, the 6th best offensive rating. Before the arrival, it was 10 in defense. It was 18 in offense. The net rating was 16th before the trade. It's 5th since. This is a balanced attack, and it's no surprise that Jimmy Butler has made this a balanced attack because that's the type of player that he is, right? He does a little bit of everything. That's who Jimmy Butler is. He said, honestly, in the most humble way possible, I'm a good fit anywhere. He's averaging 25 and 5 so far with the Warriors. And he said the reason that he's a good fit anywhere is because he plays basketball the right way. He plays his game. A lot of people here shoot a ton of threes. You don't see me shooting a ton of threes. I'm going to do what I do to help teams win. I'm going to guard. I'm going to get steals. I'm going to get to the free throw line. And I'm going to hit the open guy 10 out of 10 times. That's why it works here. The only thing about a new situation was that I wanted to be wanted. That's what Jimmy Butler said. Let's go back to all of this. Everyone wanted a second star next to Steph Curry. Jimmy Butler's definitely wanted. He says, I'm good with that. This is where I want to be. Real, a word I can't say. So with everything that I just monologued there, Evan, whether it's the bench, whether it's the more balanced attack, whether it's the vibes, whether it is a veteran leader, What to you is the reason that makes Jimmy Butler fit so perfectly, or is it the combination of all those things? That's the cop-out answer.
It's because he's a number one. It's because Jimmy Butler is a superstar. It's because Jimmy Butler is the best player that Steph Curry has played with since Kevin Durant left this organization for Brooklyn after the 2019 season. That's the reason. Jimmy Butler's a number one, and you have two now. I mean, I think Steph is still the leader of this team, but you can make a case Jimmy Butler is the most complete player on this roster. And I think it's funny that this is a Warriors team that's known for their shooting. Well, they shot 30% yesterday against the Mavericks and won comfortably by like 25 points. They no longer need to shoot it as well. Now, Steph is still the greatest three-point threat that has ever walked this earth, but they don't have to shoot the ball from three that well to win and to win comfortably. And I think you're getting that from Jimmy Butler because that's the kind of player he is. I also think when you pair him, like you mentioned, defensively with a Draymond and even to some extent a Brandon Pajemski, you put three heads together on that end of the floor and they become one of the smartest defenses in the league. We'll see how they match up against some top flight offenses. But the fact remains, they've taken care of business against 5 of 6 groups that they should beat. And you could not say that about this Warriors team pre-deadline. I think you're getting the best version of Jimmy Butler. And he said it's because, it's because he's locked in and he's feeling good. It's because he's paid, Chuck. They gave him $112 million and they're getting $112 million in return. So if you have that form of Jimmy Butler, the Warriors are all of a sudden, based on those numbers you just read, a top 5 team. And that's something that I think everybody can get on board with.
I think, too, it has to do with the fact that Butler's never won a championship. He's still hungry for something, right? He's the ultimate competitor. We've heard this over and over. And he realizes he's in a spot right now where he can lead this team to an NBA championship this year. This year may be his best chance to do it. Father Time usually doesn't do anyone favors over time. Now, in this situation, you get Kuminga a year older, Pajemski, Moody a year older. You get some flexibility in the offseason to maybe go and land someone. Post gets a year older. So maybe in this particular situation, this isn't the year, but it's as good as any other year, you would think, with still a prime Steph Curry, with Draymond playing the way that he's been playing, and with Jimmy physically still intact despite not playing a ton of this season. I would think, right? Like he's got to have a chip on his shoulder to say, all right, I come in, all of a sudden this team goes from playing at best to realistically getting a spot in the playoffs altogether and making some noise here. Hell yeah, he's motivated. He's motivated because he's seen these guys win championships many times before, and he knows he could potentially do it.
And to add on to that, I also think Steph and Draymond are equally motivated, and that's a very dangerous thing. When you put three of
you're already mixing the ring in there, man. You're getting a little ahead of yourself.
Well, Steph did all but say ring me. By the way, Chuck, I was the one who asked him that question, so you're welcome. That was me talking about the night. So the thing is like if you put those fires together and you get the gasoline, you're cooking with something. And I just think that you put 3 competitors together in a confined amount of time where Jimmy's fresh, Steph's motivated, Draymond's motivated, and they're healthy, knock on wood. They absolutely have action to do what Draymond is promising everybody. And I thought everybody was I think even he thought he might have been crazy a week ago. 7 days later, we're all thinking Draymond Green might have been onto something.
A lot of it's the demeanor that he brought up. Draymond said, I know the demeanor you got to have on the floor against teams you're going up against. When you win a championship, you're not always better than the team that you beat along the way, but you just know how to get it done. I think a part of that demeanor is how you get it done, the makeup of our team. We needed a little bit more of that we were just missing. That didn't allow this team to get over that hump. And it's why we saw so many 3-point losses and 10-point blown leads down the stretch. And now he feels like with Jimmy Butler on the squad that they have that edge. You were at the Mavericks game on Sunday, 9s hanging up in the rafters for Andre Iguodala. How were the vibes at that game overall? And that was, Jimmy's first game in the Bay Area.
Yeah, and he was like the third lead story from the night. He didn't even stick around He wasn't available post game. He
I
took
kind of
off.
forgot it was his first game because obviously you have Sacramento the game before, and there was that long road trip beforehand. So yeah, his debut game in the Bay.
No, I almost forgot driving in because it was obviously Iguodala's retirement ceremony. They're playing really good basketball, and Klay Thompson was in town. Like Jimmy Butler was on the back burner, but he drew the first Warriors chant that I heard probably since Klay came back his first time all the way in November, and got this crowd to an energetic level that I have not heard in a long time. So as far as the retirement ceremony, it was awesome. It was quintessential Andre Iguodala, which was all about Andre, and maybe even more so all about Steph. I think that he thanks Steph Curry more than he thanked his wife and children. That's how big of a Curry fan Andre Iguodala is, because he knows where his bread is buttered. But to see Bob Myers speak, Steve Kerr speak, all the clips, it's representative of an era of basketball that began the dynasty. And Andre, along with Sean Livingston, Maurice Spates, Brandon Rush, Festus Ezeli, who are all on that team, who are present for the ceremony, he's the one that gets to go in, and he'll be the first of 5 because I think Curry, Klay, Dre, and Durant will eventually follow him.
I have claimed that the Golden State Warriors will be getting the 6th seed in the Western Conference. You can clip it, everyone. I don't care. It is going to happen. I want to hear Evan Giddings' take on that. Also, errors and omissions. There was one Warriors chant earlier in the year, Evan. It was the Oklahoma City Thunder game. I know I heard one there, but it was a loud one on Sunday against the Mavericks. And hopefully we will be hearing many more of those. But let's continue the conversation. Looking ahead for the Warriors, that 6th seed, are they going to do it?
Forget that. We champs. Why are you starting with that question? We got 4 championships.
All right, so this was revealed in a Athletic article that before Butler had arrived, Draymond Green went into the front office and said, go get another a-hole. That's what he said. Another fiery two-way talent like Draymond who would say what needed to be said and compete on the knife's edge on both ends of the floor. And it was just kind of fitting. This article kind of tied him together to Andre Iguodala because he played that part as well as anyone. Guys like David West and Andrew Bogut made contributions in that department, but the Warriors just did not have it on this team. And now Draymond Green quotes that as knowing the demeanor that you need to have on the floor to win an NBA championship. Maybe not the best team, maybe not the most talented team, but a team that has gone out and won games. Jimmy Butler never won the whole thing, but he's motivated to do so, and he's taken teams a lot less talented to this one all the way to the final games of the season. So looking ahead, the Warriors right now are right there. They are a game and a half back of the LA Clippers for the 6th seed. They play each other the last game of the season. So even if the Clippers win a ton of games from here on out, as long as the Warriors take care of business and hang around with them, stay within a game at the end of the season, they will have a shot to get that 6th seed. But I think they're going to move quickly. They have some very winnable games, starting with the Charlotte Hornets on Tuesday. I want your opinion on this thing because I've already gone out there and said it to the world. They're getting the 6th seed. I don't think they're going to catch the Rockets, who they're 5 games behind right now for that 5 spot. I think the Warriors dug a little too much of a hole, and unless they go 20-5 or 18-7 the rest of the way, it's likely not going to happen, dependent on what happens with the opposition, obviously. But the 6th seed's not a bad spot to be in, man, because the Lakers are probably going to wind up 4 or 5, and you don't want to play the Lakers first round. I'd rather play anyone than a Luka Doncic now led Lakers team first round. So your thoughts on the Warriors getting that 6th seed? Are you in agreement with myself, or you have to see more?
No, I think the 6th seed is attainable. I think that has to be the
For
goal.
the taking.
Well, I mean, literally, an NBA champ has never won it beyond the 6th seed. The 1995 Houston Rockets are the lowest seed to have ever won a championship. So if that's the goal, that's where you got to get to. I don't think it's out of the question that they could make a run as the 7, because if you could upset whoever the 2 seed is, which I believe is currently Memphis, you don't have to see Oklahoma City in the 2nd round in all probability. But you're right. You'd love to not have that single or 2 elimination format where something could go wrong, or maybe an injury derails one game and then you don't get a chance to rebut. I think you're right. I think the 6th seed is well within range for this Warriors squad. And It's also, I think, mostly due in part because of the point you led with, Chuck. Their schedule is beans. Like, they play the second easiest schedule in the Western Conference the rest of the way. They have the 23rd easiest schedule over the remaining 25 games. And that means we actually might not understand how good this Warriors team is going into the playoffs, but they're going to be able to stack a lot of wins in the process. So I think we could very easily be talking heading into, April 14th or 15th or whatever it is. Whereas we're like, is this Warriors the title team? No, but they could be a 6 knocking on the door for the 5. And then we're talking about something completely different.
Free throws. The Warriors have hit more than any other team in the NBA throughout the last 6 games since the arrival of Jimmy Butler. Butler obviously getting to the free throw line about 10 times a game. That's so crucial for multiple reasons. The Warriors have been a fast-paced, up-tempo team. You go back to Moses Moody interviews at halftime and Andrew Wiggins interviews at halftime and whoever it was, like the Warriors players always sounded exhausted once they entered a break, just absolutely exhausted. And what the line does is it gives you almost an on-the-floor timeout, a quick 30, 60-second breather, which is huge for a guy like Steph Curry that expends so much energy. Is it just the addition of Jimmy Butler and kind of the, I guess, attacking is contagious type part of his game to where the Warriors are getting to the line so much? Or what do you attribute to the fact that they went from literally the worst team in the NBA getting to the line to the best?
Well, I think it means that they're not as bad of a free throw shooting team as we believe them to be. I think what it means is that their volume free throw shooters were not very good. Like the guys who are taking the most attempts, Kuminga, and that's also going to bring the free throw percentage down a bit when he returns. But Wiggins was not a spectacular free throw shooter. Now you have one volume free throw shooter, and he shoots 85% for his career. That's going to immensely, move your needle in the way you want it to go. So I don't know. I think it also, again, Chuck, they have not shot the ball well from 3, but because of that figure you just mentioned, you no longer are reliant on a 3-point shot. And I also think it's not just the free throws. They're better in the paint. I believe they're top 5 on points in paint since Jimmy Butler got here. They have certainly blown their fair amount of layups like they used to, but it's less frequent. And overall, I just think they have less margin for error on offense because of the point you talked about earlier with the way that their defense has been playing. They're a much different team, and free throws are a big part of that.
Let's finish with those vibes, man. We saw Brandon Bajimski jumping on the back of his new teammate, Jimmy Butler, just 6 games into playing together. There's so many smiles. Every role player for the Warriors seems to be more comfortable since his arrival. Like, does one player really change everything this much, especially when the other player that went out the door was probably your second or third best player at the time of his departure? Like, how do we explain all this? I mean, it's Jimmy Butler is that good of a leader, and his play is that contagious? Is that all we're getting at here?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I think that's what happens when you pair winners with each other. You're gonna, your vibes are gonna be immaculate, and it's just, again, it's so crazy. Like, you flipped a coin, and it didn't matter what you were calling; it was falling on the other side for about 51 games. And now
they were done.
I understand
like,
that
they were. I mean, the Warriors were cooked, man. They were cooked.
No, the questions we were going to be talking about on Locked On Warriors was, when should they shut down Steph? And now it's, well, how are they going to get Steph his 5th ring? It's just unbelievable how much has changed in this NBA season. And, to the point where Luka Doncic gets traded from the Dallas Mavericks, and a couple weeks later, the Warriors are somehow the story of basketball. Everyone's trying to figure out who this team is and what they're doing because they are legitimately dangerous now. And I think the entire NBA knows it.
Yeah, not only do they know it, they're going to see it in terms of wins just stacking up. Because like we mentioned, there's Charlotte on the schedule. I know Detroit's having a pretty good season, but you already beat them once. There's Brooklyn on the schedule. There's the Blazers coming up here soon. There are so many winnable games that the Warriors can realistically win 8 of 10, win 9 of 12, whatever it may be, get 6-7 games above 500. And then as soon as they catch the Clippers and have the ADV on the Clippers for the 6th seed, no one's catching this team. If they can get hot and continue this winning streak, their first one of 3 games since mid-November, they're not falling off. Like the energy, it's contagious. The vibes right now are real and they believe, man. And if we know one thing about sports, it's that confidence is more important than really anything. The
Yeah.
belief that you can win an NBA championship and that you're better than the other team on a given night, that trickles all the way down to Quentin Post, who, was playing in Santa Cruz a few months back. And now he's like, I can play with all these guys and I can help us win.
Yeah, no doubt. And yeah, I was in the tunnel after the win yesterday, and they're counting down the games. Everyone's chanting 25 to go. Draymond screaming, "Put the kids to bed." Brandon Pajemski is screaming. Dallas said that white boy can't play defense. Like there's a lot of youthful energy right now with the Warriors, and so it's been fun to cover. I'll be out there tomorrow for the Charlotte game. And I look forward to covering the rest of these games here at home because all of a sudden the Warriors are the top dog in town and they are must-watch entertainment.
All right, I guess we set the odds. Jimmy Butler said he does not have a home. Where do you think Jimmy Butler winds up? Is he a North Beach guy up near Coit Tower? Is he a Tiburon kind of guy, South Bay? Is he gonna keep it nice and close there in Mission Bay? Like, what are you thinking for Jimmy? And if he's watching the show, suggestions for Jimmy.
Well, if I'm Jimmy Butler and I'm sticking around for a few years, I'm purchasing property in the outer Richmond, because I think that's more of his vibe. That's that's where Kevon Looney lives. He strikes me as more of that kind of cat. But Jimmy Butler, I think, is in Mission Bay right now. He's got an apartment. He's up in a high rise somewhere. He's having a good time. And he's just going straight to and from the arena, straight to and from the airport, and he's on his own schedule. We still don't know yet what he's like off the court as a Warrior, but if he's purchasing property, he strikes me as an out of Richmond kind of cat.
On the way to Vegas on the plane ride, I was watching about a 15-minute documentary of Jimmy Butler's pad, and he's a cool cat, man. He's a cool cat that had a bad reputation coming in for the way that his time ended in Miami and the way that his time ended in Minnesota. And that's just kind of the reputation that was attached to him, Chicago as well. But hey, the Warriors only need one contract out of him. He wants an NBA championship. And for that reason, this could be the perfect fit at the perfect time. Any final thoughts on the way out the door, Giddings?
Well, Draymond, in that article you referenced from The Athletic, said they needed an a-hole, right? They got one. They got a great player, but that also is reflective of urgency. Like, Jimmy Butler is in a hole. And if you test his money, which could happen in the near future beyond this year, you might see the other side of Jimmy Butler that leads you to believe some of the other parts of that documentary that are left out. So to me, it's not so much about, well, worry about him down the line. It means that they got to maximize this season. I think, to your point, Chuck, they can absolutely get to the 6. They're playing great basketball. And I think it puts more urgency on what they can do this season, because I think they have a legitimate shot to not just go far in the playoffs, but I think to win a championship and try and ride off into the sunset with number 5.
Yeah, and you tried to maximize as much potential for the future as possible, only getting rid of 1 first-round pick and then essentially trading Andrew Wiggins' contract for Jimmy Butler, albeit a lot more expensive. But the future still looks fine in that regard. But the one thing that this did was give the Golden State Warriors a clear timeline of their championship aspirations. It's 3 playoffs. First playoffs are coming up. It's the youngest Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, and Steph Curry will ever be. So, yeah, I mean, expectations are back to, I don't want to say championship or bust, but you have one goal in mind. It's no longer sneaking into the playoff and trying to make things interesting. It's making things interesting right now by going on some sort of a streak that allows you to get into that 6th seed, maybe even better, and having serious aspirations to win an NBA championship. Evan, good stuff, my man. It's Evan Giddings. You can hear him on 95.7 The Game. This is Locked On Warriors. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Peace.